All right, Adam, running back day at the University of Colorado as the Buffs kick off week 2 of preseason camp, and we got running backs coach Marshall Faulk, as well as 3 of the 4 scholarship backs today. So we got to hear a lot from these guys that they tell us that they're going to be featured quite a bit this year.
Finished week 1 of training camp with 1 Hall of Famer down on the practice fields, and today there were 3, and Warren Sapp made it very clear that he's back in the building. You always know when he's around. Yep. He's quite the character. Marshall Faulk and Warren Sapp were both back in Canton for the Hall of Fame induction, and I think it really shows that Marshall Faulk made the smart decision to come here and coach, because he said that it's the first time he's been in Canton and he's wanted to be somewhere else, because they obviously had just gotten started with camp, and actually didn't want to go to that, but Coach Prime basically said you have to. So he's got that coaching bug.
Yeah, it's actually, I loved hearing that, because this is a guy like Sapp a year ago, had never coached before, and you wonder how much is he going to be into this. And when he says that, and he's like, I'm out there, and he loves it. He talks about how much he loves being out there. He goes, but I actually want to be back here with my guys. And so I think he was excited to be back today. You can also tell that he's very seasoned behind a mic.
Yes. He worked for the NFL Network for a long time, and is just a really smart individual. And we've heard stories about how smart he was as a football player, specifically with the Colts, and was just somebody that was almost a second quarterback a lot on the field from a leadership standpoint. And so it seemed like a natural fit for him. And I think for some of those guys, when you look at a Warren Sapp and a Marshall Faulk, it's got to come at the right time in their life, probably, to make a move like this. With Marshall Faulk, he had kids that he was helping raise, and now that they're out of the house, it frees him up for this opportunity. I think had either of those guys gone right into it, the grind might have been a lot, but I think at this point of their life, you just look at it through a different perspective, and we've heard that from Pat Shurmur a lot as well, of just how this is, being around these young guys has really rejuvenated him. And so it's fun to do press settings where you regularly have Hall of Famers coming up. Yeah. I'm not going to lie, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And Falk actually mentioned that his son is out here helping, and so he gets to go home and talk to his son about different running backs from that day. And he said sometimes you don't bring work home. He goes, well, I bring it home, because he talks to his son about it. And speaking of this group's running backs, I asked him, how much do you look at what they did last year in the previous places, whether it was here or somewhere else, versus giving them a clean slate? And he goes, well, it is a clean slate, because I've never coached them. And I like that approach too. I mean, some coaches do that. Some will look to get the base idea of what these guys are. He goes, it's a clean slate. I want them to see what they can do for me, because whatever they did last year doesn't matter.
Well, with the 2 guys that are now back as scholarship returning backs were banged up last year. Yeah. And so I don't really know how much you want to pour over last year's film, because, we all know Dallin Hayden didn't live up to his expectations. He had a pretty severe ankle sprain, and told us today that he was really never able to get back to 100%. I thought in a couple of those runs in the spring game that was more we saw out of him than any time last year, I thought, honestly. Yeah. So you kind of do want to give him that second opportunity. He was good behind good offensive lines at Ohio State. So now that he's got that experience, and Colorado's offensive line should be better than it was a year ago, that should help him. And same thing with Michael Welsh. It was a hamstring injury. He showed flashes, though. There were times last year that you had to be excited as a Colorado fan about his potential, because of just pound for pound, he's one of the tougher guys on this football team. There are times that he tries to cut it outside every time, and he's got to kind of get some of the nuances, and that'll come with the experience. But both those guys are pretty exciting backs when they're healthy.
Yeah, and Dallin Hayden, he was asked about last year, and he goes, well, I don't really think about last year. It was last year. I know it's been a disappointing 2 years for him, because he rushed for 500-some yards at Ohio State, I think back in 2022. Didn't play a lot in 23, then came here and obviously was injured. And so it's been a tough couple of years for him. Michael Welch, again, not a great year last year, but he mentioned he learned so much from last year, and he's grateful for that experience last year. I expect to see much better versions of both those guys if they're healthy.
And when you talk about those 2 guys, you talk about the injuries, and you also have to talk about just the ground game in general. They were not committing to that.
Right.
I don't think there were a lot of running backs that were going to have success with just their focus and where it was last year. So that's kind of hard to put on those guys. Now they could have made a few more plays here and there, but again, they were injured. So I'm really anxious to see. And then DeKalen Taylor, he's going to be a good interview around here.
Yes.
He was asked to describe his playing style, and he said, "Blink and you might miss it."
Right.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, a very confident young man, and very fast. He was also asked, "Are you ready to declare yourself the fastest man on the team?" He goes, "Yes, I am." That was it. That was the whole answer. He's. I did a Zoom with him over the summer. I think it was right before or right after he got here. Awesome young man. I think he's going to be a really nice addition. Good personality, but also a lot of talent. And he's sort of that home run hitter that Dallin and Micah are not. I feel like DeKalen could be that home run hitter.
Somebody was comparing him to Jarek Broussard, and I thought that was a good comparison.
Yeah.
Pretty similar running backs. And I'm anxious to see how big of an impact he has on special teams, because he was a kickoff and punt returner at Incarnate Word. That's a spot that you could maybe put a true freshman in there, and they've got guys like Quinn Alex Farrakhan that were really good at that in high school. Quentin Gibson, same thing. But to have somebody that's played a little bit in college and not at this level, but especially at punt returner, you want to feel confident in him. And I think that he's a guy you can plug in both those spots and feel good about.
Well, those gunners are going to be up on you faster than they are for those high school guys that are used to it catching it in high school. So, that'll be interesting. And then Simeon Price, we didn't talk to him today. He's that fourth scholarship back, a guy that's got some experience. Not a ton of yards in his college career, but again, Marshall Faulk talks about clean slate. We've seen some good things out of him this camp as well. Yeah,
kind of the wild card at that position. And with Charlie Offerdahl medically retiring, and it seemed like the right decision. You get a lot of those concussions. You got to be smart about your future. So that makes sense. But you only got 4 scholarship running backs on this roster. That position is a magnet. You do have guys like Cam Michael and Draylon Miller that you could move. Isaiah Harge, we've talked about that. But as things look right now, you got 4 scholarship running backs. So Price has got to be a guy that they can expect to have a role, and kind of a bigger back, so he'll be able to be a little bit more of a punishing runner than DeKalen Taylor would be.
Yeah. Well, we started this talking about, you mentioned Hall of Famers. We got 2 more media availabilities this week. I think tomorrow it's going to be another Hall of Famer, Warren Sapp, and later this week we got Hall of Famer Coach Prime Deion Sanders. So we got a busy week ahead of us. We'll be back tomorrow.